longer range than the Douglas Commercial 3 that most people experienced their first flight. The final year of development of piston-powered airliners were dominated by three big American companies, Douglas, Boeing and Lockheed. The Douglas Aircraft Company had been in business in Southern California since 1920 and had a rich history of successful products. In 1945, Douglas began marketing ex-military DC-4s, which by the end of 1946 would equip most American airlines and several predominant foreign ones, such as BOAC. Next came the larger, improved and more powerful Douglas Commercial 6, with its pressurized cabin. The early 1950s saw further development and a breakthrough: the installation of 3,400 horsepower Wright turbo compound R3350 engines resulted in an airliner capable of non-stop transcontinental flights in either direction. This aircraft was the DC-7, and it entered service with American Airlines on the New York-Los Angeles route in November 1953. Later models of the DC-7 were modified with an extra 10 feet or 3 meters of wingspan to accommodate more fuel and make non-stop transoceanic flights a reality. The DC-7s were the fastest piston engine airliners of their time, with an average travel times from Los Angeles to New York of under 8 hours at a cruise speed of 360 miles per hour, 580 kilometers an hour. Beginning in 1958, jet-powered airliners began to enter service, replacing the DC-7 and its piston engine contemporaries, although the DC-7 left major airline service by the mid-1960s. It remained in service with smaller airlines, and some were converted to freighters, and still fly today. The DC-7 flight deck accommodated a crew of 3. The captain in the left seat, co-pilot, first officer, in the right-hand seat, and flight engineer in a centre seat between and slightly aft of the 2 pilots. Each pilot had identical flight instruments, a wheel yoke and rudder pedals. The engine instruments located in the centre of the instrument panel could be monitored easily by all 3 crew members. The wheel to the left of the pilot's seat controlled the nose wheel steering and was only used on the ground for taxiing. More than likely it could be locked in place, just like the DC-3's tail wheel. The large, ridged, vertical wheels on either side of the centre console were the pitch trim wheels for each pilot. The engine throttles and propeller controls were located on the centre console, between the pilots and in front of the flight engineer. The upper panels controlled various aircraft systems and were primarily operated by the flight engineer. For an interesting look at how airliner flight decks have evolved over the years, compare the DC-7 cockpit of the 1950s to the cockpit of the Airbus A320 of the late 1980s and early 1990s. 2. The National Air and Space Museum. During its career, flagship Vermont carried 130,000 passengers, approximately 4 million miles, 6.4 million kilometers in nearly 13,500 flight hours. DC-7 stats. Manufacturer Douglas Aircraft Corporation. Country of origin United States. Type airliner and transport aircraft. Number built 338. Years manufactured 1953 to 1958. Introduction 29th of November 1953. First flight 18th of May 1953. Retired October 2020. Primary users were American Airlines, United Airlines, Eastern Airlines, and Pan Am, of both the DC-7B and DC-7C variants.